This postgame show is brought to you by BetUS. They're one of the leading sports betting platforms. They're secure, reliable, they have excellent customer service, and they're there to satisfy all your betting needs, whether that's basketball, football, baseball, soccer, or whatever other sport you can think of. Maybe you want to even bet on some international games. They have you covered, from everything to pregame, live game, parlays, player props, and a whole bunch more. The customer service is what really helps them stand out. They're there 24/7 to help you out with anything you need. They have some of the best promotions and bonuses going on right now, and in fact, if you click the link in the description, you'll receive a 125% sign-up bonus for when you sign up with BetUS. For example, if you deposit $100, you will receive 125 free betting dollars to play with. BetUS is one of the best sports books out there. They have some of the most unique special bets out there, so go check them out. Click the link down in the description and get a 125% deposit match sign-up bonus when you sign up with BetUS. What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise post-game show presented by BetUS. The Blazers today had quite the game, Eric. They beat the San Antonio Spurs 134-128 despite some hot three-point shooting. The Blazers shoot 59.3% from three. I was at the game, that's why the stream is a little bit late, my apologies, but it was nice getting to watch this team in person with some pretty good seats, courtesy of Stephen Vaughn, so shout out to him. Also got to meet Patrick Morehouse leaving the game. That was cool as well, and he's in chat, so good to see him in here as well. And yeah, it was an enjoyable experience, and it was a fun game, man. Lots of buckets, not much defense. The Blazers get up 26, try and blow another 26-point lead, which they did earlier this season, but pull it out, and finally, for the first time this season, win as the favorites going into this game. Eric, how's it going, man? How's your night, and what are your initial thoughts on this game as you watched it at home?
Well, my initial thoughts were, well, one, glad we got the victory, and hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And two, this is what I was talking about last night, wanting to see more from Scoot Henderson, being disappointed with his game last night because I wanted to see him run the offense more like he did tonight. I felt like he was capable of doing so. And so I was really disappointed that he didn't do that last night, but very encouraged and happy to see him not only play well tonight, but make some really nice high-level passes, giving his teammates some easy baskets.
Yeah. No, I did not get my car broken into this time, Max. First game I went to this season got my car broken into. This time I paid for parking. I'm paying for parking now, so I don't have to pay for a new window. I wasn't worried about, I wasn't too disappointed with Scoot last game. I think this is just going to be a season where he's going to have a lot of ups and downs. Start of the season started off slowly. It was basically just completely down. 2 for 24 start from 3 to start the season, but 3 for 5 tonight, was 3 for 7 last night. So these 2 games on back-to-back nights, Scoot Henderson 6 for 12 from 3. That's 50%. He's shooting 36.5% from 3 since that 2 for 24 stretch. So the steady progress is a lot of fun. It's going to be a bit of a bumpy path, but as long as he's continuing to show progress like he's been doing, I am completely happy with it. And the way he ran the offense, especially in the first half, he kind of dominated this game. He did it with his scoring. He started off efficient, I believe, with 14 or 17 points in the first half, hit a couple threes, had a couple solid finishes, as well as some dimes in the first half. That wraparound pass to Matisse Thybulle was maybe my favorite pass of the year from him. That was a great pass. But also just, he had a play there in the first half where he pushed the pace, backed it out, threw a perfect pocket pass to a cutting Jabari Walker, who was great tonight, and Jabari Walker got a finish, and that just kind of shows the evolution of his game, knowing when to push the pace and knowing when to back it out. He's doing a much better job picking his spots. Still going to have some hiccups. Did have 4 turnovers today, but it's completely fine when he has 11 assists, finishes with a double-double, almost gets a triple-double as he had 7 rebounds to go along with those 11 assists and 22 points on the night for him. Still 5 fouls, still got to cut that down, but played 37 minutes tonight. He played a ton in the second half. He got more of a rest in the first, and I thought it was going to be a situation where the Blazers were going to walk away with this game, but he had to play right up to the end because they tried to choke this one. They tried to blow this one, Eric, up 26, and the Spurs cut it to 5. So Spurs kept fighting. Doug McDermott hit some shots. He was huge, but as far as Scoot goes, defense, a little bit of a mixed bag, but had that big block on Malachi Branham, I believe it was. He's gaining more and more confidence, and you can kind of see it. You can kind of feel it. And the way he played in the first half, I think, was the best half of his entire... Sorry, State Farm ad. We are not sponsored by State Farm, unfortunately. The first half was probably the best half of his season, I think.
Yeah, I think it pretty much was. Yeah, I think you can definitively say that. Just real nice tempo. Even the shots he took, I felt like he took his time. He wasn't sped up when he shot. He made sure he had good form on his shots. So I just thought he was under control, set up the offense really well, and I don't think it was a coincidence that the team had a really good scoring outburst, probably their best game without Anthony too this season in terms of just offense being, pretty good in terms of moving and passing and stuff like that. Now, there was a stretch in the second half where for some reason we decided to try and post up Jeremy Grant, and everyone just cleared out and didn't move. Reminded me a lot of the Carmelo Anthony days. And I don't know why we resorted to that in the second half. But outside of that, I thought this offense, for the first time, you could see some semblance of an offense without Anthony Simons. And I think Scoot was the main reason why with his passing ability.
Yeah, 100% agree. I gotta close ESPN or figure out how to mute these freaking ads, man. The offense, I don't know, man. It always looks good when you're making shots. And they shoot 16 for 27. That's insane. And we're talking about a team that struggled to shoot threes to start the year. Still one of the worst teams in terms of shooting the 3-ball in the season. But Jeremy Grant starts 4 for 4 from 3. Brogdon 5 for 7 after going... was that last game or 2 games ago? He recently had a 6 for 8 3-point shooting game as well. So his shot's dialed in. He's looking good. Hopefully he's playing up his trade value. Scoot 3 for 5. Scoot knocking down threes. Skylar Mays hit his only 3. 16 for 27 has to be the best percentage they've shot from 3 all year. Like, we were hoping for half that during that stretch where they lost 8 games without Anthony Simons, missing multiple guys. You don't have Ant today. You don't have Sharp today. You still shoot that number. That's extremely impressive. I think in the first half, the offense, they have that 42-point second quarter, and Scoot was orchestrating things well. Still didn't really feel like the offense had much structure to it. I think this game doesn't really do it justice. Being there in person and watching it, I felt like, especially in the second half, there was a lot of guys standing around like not knowing what they should be doing offensively. And I was watching Chauncey for a good part of this game to see if he was like calling anything when the ball's being brought down the floor. Multiple times I'm just watching Chauncey. He's just standing there saying nothing, calling nothing, and they're just walking the ball up the floor. And then it seems like everybody's standing around. They'll set like a random screen. I don't think this offense has much structure. Didn't think that going into tonight. And when you look at tonight and they score 134 points and the offense at times was pretty, it looks great, but I don't think it was due to any sort of structure. I think in the first half, Scoot was doing a good job just making plays. A lot of it came off a lot of dribbling, though, which, if you make a play at the end of it, it's fine. But that is still something where I would like to see them play with more structure because I think they would be more consistently solid. I think you have a lot of ups and downs right now because you got some guys on this team that can make plays, and Scoot Henderson's becoming that guy, which we love to see. But then in the second half, for a stretch there, they still scored the ball because they still shot the ball well, but you had some tough threes that Brogdon made. You have some tough shots. Also, the San Antonio Spurs defense, dude, I don't understand what the hell they're doing. They're awful. It looked like a team that was heavily reliant upon Victor Wembanyama that did not have Victor Wembanyama defensively. Yeah. The way they left shooters was quite baffling to me. But I still would like to see a little bit more structure. I would like to see them run a few more sets. Just feels like tonight was more of a product of the players making plays, making shots. Scoot Henderson running the offense very well. Malcolm Brogdon, 7 assists, 1 turnover. I think it was mostly just a product of the players and a product of San Antonio being maybe the worst defense in the league.
Yeah, our defense wasn't much better at times either, but they were dreadful, man. We needed that. And then 16 offensive rebounds again for us. Gave up 13, but I thought in particular Jabari really did a nice job on the boards. And we haven't mentioned him much yet, but Jabari, I think it was by far his best game as a pro, obviously a career high. But he was really outside of Scoot, the difference in this game. But at the same time, and this is no knock on Jabari or anything, but I think it's more impressive what Scoot did tonight. You could say it was against a bad defense, but he doesn't have like a Karl Malone to John Stockton, like a go-to guy that he can get assists from, and or a lob target like I don't know, like Clint Capella, like we talked about last stream for James Harden, in Houston. Like we didn't have that tonight really. So I think it's more impressive when he's making guys like Jabari Walker look like good finishers and a legit center option. And I'm not taking anything away from Jabari. He was fantastic in this game. But I'm just saying, like, Scoot didn't have like a true big man to get easy assists to either. A lot of his assists were very difficult ones.
Yeah, I've been impressed with Jabari's finishing. He's definitely improved since his rookie year. He had that flip shot over the head. I don't know if that was a Scoot assist, but that finish was phenomenal. Jabari just uses his body well. He's not like a traditional big, but he's really good at using his body. And he doesn't get blocked as much as you would expect for a guy that's undersized, playing the 5, who's also a little bit ground bound. You know, he's not an elite athlete. He's not going to dunk over anyone. So his finishing has always been predicated upon him finding a way to use his body to get shots off on the interior, and you're seeing that. And you compare this Blazer team to the Spurs don't have a hustle guy on it like a Jabari Walker, and I think that was quite obvious tonight. They don't have, like, you look at this roster, I guess the only hustle guy maybe Zach Collins, I guess, but he ends up going out with an injury. Everybody else, like, you look at Champagny, Vassell, Branham, McDermott, Osman, Keldon Johnson, Trey Jones, like, they don't have, like, a physical hustle guy in the front court. And I think Jabari, in a way, kind of thrived off this matchup.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be Sohan.
He's just not that, dude.
I know, but he's supposed to be that guy.
Yes.
That's what he was drafted to be. That's what he was billed as, that defensive hustle guy who should have a better skill set than Jabari. Obviously picked, 48 spots higher than Jabari. But, I mean, I know you're really down on Sohan. I don't know if he's just not being used correctly, or what the deal is with him, but he does not look good, man. He
just has no role offensively.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they've been using him as a point guard, but he's not really a shot creator like that. Like, he's like, God, what's the phrase? He's like a token point guard. Like, he's a guy that can dribble the ball up the floor and then, like, pass it off to somebody on the wing. That's the type of point forward he is. He's not a shooter. We saw him shoot a wide-open three last game, and he airballed by, like, 20 feet. Was one of the worst airballs I've ever seen. He just, defensively, he has tools, but, I mean, I don't like drafting these types of players top 10, where it's like, oh, they're good defensively, they have really good physical tools, and, like, they have some flashes of playmaking, and, like, their shots completely broken, but, like, maybe they can be a good shooter and, like, playmaker and then be a really good two-way player. So we're going to draft them at 5, which is what Cleveland did with Isaac Okoro, or we're going to draft them at 9, which is what the Spurs did with Jeremy Sohan. I feel like those types of players are very, very risky and oftentimes don't provide enough reward for where they get drafted. Like, you can throw it all the way back to 2012 with, like, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist going number 2, right? And that's something going forward, especially in this year's draft, like, that archetype would be nice for the Blazers because obviously they need to improve defensively, but I feel like you gotta draft prospects that show a little bit more offensively than Jeremy Sohan did, or they have to be, like, 1% athletes, right? Like, Asar rebounds really well. He can pass. He reads the floor better than Okoro Sohan. Like, he has more to his offensive game despite his shot being broken, and he's a 1% athlete. Like, guys like Sohan, guys like Okoro, I tend to try and stay away from, and you saw it tonight. Sohan, they're missing Wembanyama. Zach Collins goes out with an injury. Sohan, at the very least, is supposed to be a hustle guy, and he provides absolutely no impact up front whatsoever. And he was their biggest player other than Dominic Barlow, I guess, who did not make me proud tonight. He was pretty rough tonight. Sohan became their biggest player, and he's their hustle guy. He's their athlete. He's their defender. He's had absolutely no impact. This is Jabari Walker being that guy for Portland. And Jabari Walker absolutely abused Jeremy Sohan on the interior in this game. I don't know how many buckets were against Sohan, but it's like that's both teams are going small, but Jabari Walker plays bigger than his size. Sohan hardly felt his impact at all.
Yeah, well, two things. One, real quick, I think Almanza is that guy in this draft for me. Potential to be that role player, but I'm not going to draft him probably in the lottery.
You know who the other guy is? Ryan Dunn.
Yeah, Ryan Dunn. Yeah. Ryan Dunn's a little interesting, though, because, I mean, he has a chance to be, like, all defensive, elite defender.
But that's what they said about Okoro and Sohan.
Yeah, but, like, Dunn is, though. Like, it's not just potential. Like, I think it's pretty clear he he has really, really good defensive, both instincts, lateral quickness, all that kind of stuff. Health defense, I think he's the real deal. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. He is shooting the ball or offensively along the same lines as those guys you mentioned. But for me, I just wonder, like, if Sohan was in a Jabari Walker role, like, because Jabari's not handling the ball. He doesn't have responsibilities to create offense. All he has to do is crash the boards, play defense, and finish around the hoop when he gets it, and occasionally shoot a three-pointer if he's open, you know? And so I wonder, like, if San Antonio used him more in that way, if he would be, like, a much better version of Jabari Walker, or if he's just not panning out and just isn't that good. It's kind of a weird or interesting study, I guess, on his abilities and stuff.
I just don't think he has Jabari's motor. Despite Sohan's supposed to be
but he did have a motor though in college.
But Jabari Walker was a little bit more of a scorer in college. But in the NBA, like, Jabari Walker plays as hard as anybody out there on the floor. Mm-hmm. Like, 6 offensive rebounds in this game. You see it in his rebounding ability, the way he pursues the basketball, the way he cuts. Like, he has a really good motor. Sohan, it feels like, is just kind of, I don't know, he doesn't make the impact you would expect from a player that should have the motor that he supposedly has. But that's why I love Jabari. It's that. Also, Jabari's stronger. That's the other thing. Jabari's stronger, and he knows how to use his body when he finishes. That's the most underrated part of Jabari Walker's game and development right now, is he has figured out how to use his body. He's strong. He's figured out how to use that to finish extremely well. And it's something that I didn't really foresee. I was going into the season like, man, he really needs to hit threes consistently. Like, he really needs to stretch his game out to 3 so he can be like 3-and-D with some rebounding.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be finishing the way he has, as well as he has. And it's just because of that, he has surprisingly good body control when he goes up and finishes, when he deals with contact. And that's something that some guys just don't learn. Like, I don't think Sohan would finish some of the plays that Jabari did today, because I don't think he knows how to use his body like that, and he's not as strong.
Well, so I think he kept it more lean because, you know, they're trying to force him to play point guard.
Yeah. And
so you got to be quicker and stuff. Whereas Jabari, they're more grooming him to be a small ball center / big power forward. And so you want to bulk up. And last year, Jabari was, he wasn't like pudgy or whatever, but he did seem like he had, or he could lose a little weight to get, a little quicker. But instead of losing weight, he like became cut, and I think that's the difference. Is Sohan isn't like the way he's being used, and probably the way he trained and stuff was to be quicker, not stronger, and Jabari was the opposite. So it's an interesting dynamic in terms of development. Like, you just take a into the second round guy and develop him to be that guy, and you try to make a top 10 pick into something he's maybe not. I don't know. Sohan could easily figure things out and be really good, or go back to being a role player. But I don't know. Right now, I'd be kind of frustrated if I was a Spurs fan with him.
Yeah, I just think you can find something close to that archetype far later in the draft, which is why I tend to shy away from it too. And the Blazers are proof, because they have 2 guys drafted in the 50s the last 2 years that are in that archetype. Tamani has some work to be done offensively, right? But he hit a 3 today, like missed a couple others. Like, he's pretty much a non-factor offensively most nights. Tonight, actually 6 for 12 from the field, 4 offensive rebounds. Like, this was kind of one of his better offensive games, but you look at it, 3 steals, 11 boards, filling up the stat sheet. Like, he had more of an impact on this game than Sohan. And we know that Kamara does it on the defensive side of things. He's a little bit older than Sohan, but you found that archetype with the 52nd pick. You look at Jabari, 57th pick. You can find that archetype in guys later on in the draft. The key is you got to get guys that work hard. Tamani and Jabari both seem like guys that work their ass off, right? I don't know. I'm not in there with them in the gym, but sometimes you can just tell by a guy's demeanor, right? In the way he plays, that he puts in a ton of work. Tamani and Jabari put in work. I'm not saying Sohan doesn't, but you can find these types of good hustle defenders later on in the draft. That was one of my biggest critiques of Neil Olshey. And at times I wasn't as hard on Neil Olshey as other people. Other times I was harder than other people. You know, when we signed Derrick Jones Jr. to the full mid-level exception, that's a classic Blazers Uprise clip. But my critique, one of my biggest critiques with Olshey was he did not work well enough around the fringes of the roster. He didn't make use of, you know, second round picks. He didn't find like Tamani Kamara's, Jabari Walker's in the second round. His best second round pick after, you know, maybe his first couple of years when he got like Will Barton and Alan Crabb, although Alan Crabb was very early second. Like his best mid to late second round pick was probably Jake Layman, who had a few flashes in Portland, but he was never the defensive player that Tamani Kamara or Jabari Walker was by any means. And Layman, you know, would have some hot stretches where he'd look good, but he wasn't as solid as Tamani and Jabari because those guys hustle, they play defense, they rebound, they do multiple like small things to help teams win games. So that was my biggest critique with Neil Olshey.
I mean, Gary Trent did show that a little bit in the bubble. Was kind of looking like he was going to be one of those defensive players, but then regressed heavily the next year.
But like with Gary Trent Jr., it was always he doesn't rebound. Even for a guard, he doesn't rebound. And then he doesn't pass. Like, he was basically just a shooter scorer and, like, would chase after some steals. It wasn't, like, solid hustle defense. It wasn't rebounding the ball. It wasn't getting, like, your nose dirty sort of stuff from him, right? And instead, they trade 2 firsts for Robert Covington to try to get that, which ended up being a massive, massive mistake. So it's nice. It's awesome having Jabari and Tamani on a game like tonight. They combined for 38 points, and they combined 13 for 23 from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. Jabari gets to the free throw line 13 times. He was so much more physical than anybody. Merchant. Yeah, he was so much more physical than anybody on the Spurs team. Now, it's as much a criticism to San Antonio as it is a compliment to Jabari Walker, but it is a compliment to Jabari Walker. 25 points, career high, plus 12, 7 for 11 from the field. I mean, he set the tone. His physicality, his finishing, I loved what he provided tonight. And it's just awesome to have a guy on such a cheap contract look like he could be a role player off the bench in the future. The Blazers still need to find their like upper echelon in terms of talent, right? They need to develop a couple of all-star caliber players, maybe find a superstar, but they'll have those opportunities. I'm becoming less and less worried about their ability to fill out the rest of their rotation like 2 to 3 years down the line when they're ready to win and maybe make a playoff push because of guys like Jabari, because of guys like Tamani.
Yeah, absolutely. Finding guys that can fill in, and I mean, they dumped Trendon Watford, right? And everyone's questioning that. I think they felt pretty comfortable with Jabari, and also I think they thought Chris was probably going to give him a little more along those same lines, but he hasn't really had much of an opportunity. I don't know if that means he's not doing much in practice or what, but yeah, I think they thought they were fine at the 4 and didn't need Watford.
I do have a question about, you bring up Chris Murray. Also, you got Ryan Rupert, who they drafted in the second round, who's been shooting the 3-ball well in the G League for the Rip City Remix. Whose NBA future are you more confident in between those two? I'll make a chat poll as well, so chat, you guys can vote, because I'm kind of curious, Chris Murray gets drafted about 20 slots higher than Rupert, but hasn't really had the start to his career that people were expecting. Hasn't been shooting the ball as well in the G League as Ryan Rupert, and Ryan Rupert has better defensive tools and is younger. So begs the question, whose NBA future are you more confident in between Ryan Rupert and Chris Murray?
I I don't know. I mean, Repair obviously has higher upside, is younger, better length, probably projects to be at his best a much better defender. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not super confident in either one, to be honest. But I do think Repair has a higher ceiling, so in this situation, I'll always take that over someone who I think could be fine if needed to play, but I don't think he's going to be like I don't think he's going to ever show like what Jabari's showing right now. So I don't know.
The thing is, for me, comparing those two guys, Murray is almost 4 years older than Repair.
Yeah,
Murray is 23. Repair's 19 right now. Apparently, Repair grew an inch after the Blazers drafted him. I'm not trying to turn this into like a me critiquing Chris Murray thing. I'm actually turning this into like I think they might have another guy of this archetype down the pipeline because I think Repair will be somebody that can play spot minutes at the very least a couple years from now. He's a raw prospect, but his shooting in the G League is promising because that was the knock on him was he couldn't shoot threes, couldn't hit threes well enough. Right,
his 3-point shooting is promising in the G League. He's still really rough finishing around the basket and from 2-point range. But
with his defensive tools, though, because he has insane defensive tools, like he has to learn how to defend at the NBA level. But I have a hard time seeing him not being at least a positive defensive player given his tools. If he can also knock down threes at an above-average clip, then you got yourself an NBA player, in my opinion. And the thing is like he has some sneaky upside as like maybe being able to handle the ball a little bit, like he moves well.
But
for a guy, for a guy of his archetype, he handles the ball better than you'd expect for like a really raw defensive second round rookie who's only 19 years old, right? So I still like Repair a lot as a long term prospect. I think he's going to be the next guy up in this pipeline, and if he can ever put the pieces together, he might end up being a better player than any of the rookies or Jabari Walker than we have right now. I'm still bullish on Repair's long-term upside, but it's nice to have three guys drafted in the last 2 years from like the 40s on down that we have faith in, two guys showing it at the NBA level, and then Repair who his shot's making progress, he has the defensive tools. It's kind of fun to have these types of prospects right now after years of not being able to do anything around the fringes of the roster, and that's part of the reason why Dame never had good enough role players, it felt like, to get anything done.
Yeah. Oh, but that also makes me like, what if we would have gotten another one of those guys at 23? You know what I mean? Like, we've been talking about having a fourth guy right now.
Yeah.
To add to that, maybe they're even contributing and helping us win more this year. Because, I mean, you look at that, and I know it was ahead of us, but you look at what, like, Hawkes is doing in Miami or Pods is doing in Golden State, who were picked a couple ahead of Chris Murray. But apparently we had a higher grade for Chris than any of those guys. Keontae George has played well for Utah this year. He was the 16th pick. But then you look below ours. You mentioned last night that Omax had a good game recently. The jury's still out on him. Marcus Sasser looks like he's a solid backup point guard at least, kind of being wasted on a bad Detroit team. Julian Strawther, like if we had that guy right now,
it was a deep draft, man.
Right. Kobe Brown, I haven't really seen much of him when I watched the Clippers because, they obviously have their main guys, but that could be a role player along those lines. And then, of course, there's Leonard Miller, who we both wanted. Andre Jackson has played a little bit and looked nice. Jordan Walsh hasn't played much with the Celtics, but the G League
he's on a contending team. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a chance to get another one of those guys possibly in this draft too. So that might be, I don't know, like, I don't know if you can call it anything yet, but I mean, there was a reason why we were both kind of disappointed. I kind of like Chris, but not for the Blazers at that position. So imagine if we had another player right now to add to that.
I think I had Chris like 39th on my big board. Like, I just, you draft an NBA ready 23-year-old, NBA ready, right? You can't even play minutes for a team like this. The thing is when you hit on guys later in the draft, you can afford to miss earlier in the draft. Or you can afford to miss with a 23rd pick because you got Toumani Camara in the trade with the Suns, who apparently Joe Cronin insisted on Toumani Camara, so credit to Cronin for that. You kind of look at it like Toumani Camara was the 23rd pick in a way, right?
Right.
Look at Jabari Walker with the 57th pick. Like, he was a borderline first-round prospect for me coming into the draft. He was in the first round for you. Like, that was easily a good value pick. So, like the way they've worked around the fringes of the draft, I think, I don't know how sold I am on their ability to draft. I think this upcoming draft, Eric, will be the one to gauge this front office's ability to properly draft, because this upcoming draft is just a mess. One of the worst drafts in years, in my opinion. But even in bad drafts, you can find diamonds in the rough. 2013 was a really bad draft, but Giannis Antetokounmpo was taken with the 15th pick, right? And I think Rudy Gobert was also in that draft, drafted in the 20s. So if you're able to identify the couple hidden gems in a bad draft class, that can be huge for you going forward. And the Blazers should have plenty of opportunities to swing because they got 2 first-round picks right now, the Warriors pick in their own, and then they got 2 second-round picks. So this upcoming draft is the draft to gauge this front office's ability to draft, because Scoot was the obvious choice. Sharp, like, I don't know. It was a good pick. Like, I don't think it was as obvious as Scoot by any means, but still, it was kind of like, if you're going to go for upside, Sharp's obviously the guy, but still give some credit, I guess, for that pick.
Because they could have taken Daniel or Dyson Daniels,
yeah,
or Sohan.
Guy. Yeah.
And think of how much worse we'd be right now in terms of upside of the rebuild. I mean, those guys might have been good role players last year, but yeah.
But that's also why, like, in my opinion, the top 10, if there's a clear-cut choice and it's a guard, like, it's hard to say no, because it's like, if that was this upcoming draft with the Blazers, with all the guards they have, if you say we can't draft a guard, then you might be drafting the next Jeremy Sohan or Dyson Daniels and passing on the next Shaedon Sharpe. You know what I mean? That's what makes this draft tough too, is because I'm higher on the guards right now than the forwards. So it's this upcoming draft is going to be absolutely fascinating. But thank goodness they took Shaedon Sharpe. They've hit on some second-round picks, in my opinion. You can kind of throw Toumani in there since Cronin insisted upon him, and then Jabari Walker. Ryan Rupert, I think, is going to be a hit at some point as well, because you're not expecting a ton from guys drafted where he was, and I think he will be a role player someday. It will probably take some time, but I do believe in him. It's just the Chris Murray pick looks real bad right now. But maybe he can turn around. He was coming off a good remix game. And this is why when this team eventually tanks, it'll be interesting to watch the tanking team more than any previous year of tanking, because it's probably going to be a lot of Chris Murray, a lot of Toumani Camara, a lot of Ryan Rupert, a lot of Scoot Henderson. And that's going to be more intriguing than, running out the guys the Blazers were running out last year, when it's like Skylar Bays and so.
Well, in Chris Murray's defense too, he hasn't gotten because all those guys last year got playing time when we started tanking, so that that's when Sharpe took off. That's when Jabari got actual minutes to play and stuff like that, and start to carve out what he needed to do in the offseason to become a rotation player. And so I don't know, Chris hasn't really, I don't think we can completely write Chris off without seeing him get a chance to play and see if he can carve out and be a role player like Jabari's become. But yeah, I mean, I don't see how he's going to get that opportunity short of we trade Jeremy and a bunch of people, and we have a end of the season like last year where he's basically like starting and playing major minutes because we don't really have a lot of players on the roster.
Yeah. Yeah. So to tie this back to this post-game show about the game, very happy with what Jabari Walker has turned into for this team. He had a big game a couple of games ago as well, and he's just hustle guy. And long term, if he's the 11th man, he's a good 11th man. Like if he's not necessarily in the rotation because we have a really good team, he's not the type of guy that seems like he's going to throw fits about it. He's going to go in there every day and work, and when he does get into the game, he's going to play his ass off, and he's going to bring some physicality, which is what this team misses, Eric, when they start Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton, and I've talked about this. They don't have dominating. They don't have a physicality edge in the front court. Their biggest physicality edge in the front court is Jabari Walker, and I think it's clearer now than it's ever been, especially after a game like this.
But like you look at last night's game, and not that Jabari played bad or anything, but the physicality can get overmatched by length and just having really good centers on the other team. So this was a bit of without Wemby, this is a really good matchup for Jabari's skill set. So yeah, I was pleased to see him take advantage of it, of course. But like he's not going to be able to do this against a lot of teams.
Yeah.
Like to this extent at least.
But like going forward, when you have a really good team and you have 10th, 11th, and 12th men, you want those guys to be able to thrive in certain game situations where if it's against a small ball team, a team like this, you throw Jabari out there because this is the matchup for him. If it's a bigger team, hopefully maybe one day Ibubaji can become, that third string center that can come in as a legitimate big man that can defend.
Played all right again today.
Yeah. I mean, he's not bad. Like he's young. He's not going to be anything impressive offensively. It's just kind of like making sure he doesn't have any like glaring weaknesses, right?
Just set screens, man. Set those good screens.
Yeah, and he's going to be a lob target. Like you just want guys at the end of your roster that aren't in your rotation every day, but if there are some injuries, can slot into your rotation and not like hurt you, right? Can provide some sort of value, and then in certain situations, maybe you can call their number because certain game scenarios are made for them to thrive in. And Jabari Walker has become at least that level of player. Now, can he become a everyday rotation guy on a winning team, on a contending team? I think he has to play the 4 to do that. I think the key to that is just simply becoming a more reputable three-point shooter. I still think that's the gap between him being that like fringe rotation hustle guy and being a guy who can play night in, night out for a really good team. Because at the 5, as you said, like there's going to be a lot of scenarios where he's going up against a big that is just too lengthy for him. And even though he plays hard, he can't compete against, a legitimately sized big center. But if he can play some 4, then it's a little easier. But to play the 4, you probably got to be able to knock down 3s. Now, if you're playing next to an Alex Sarr maybe is a future Blazer, then it's a little bit easier because he can shoot 3s, or hopefully he'll be able to shoot 3s at the NBA level. You can kind of mix and match some interesting combinations that way if you have a center that can shoot and defend big players at the 5 spot. But Jabari, love what he's turned himself into. At the end of the day, still probably got to hit more 3s and be a little bit more reputable as a shooter. But I mean, he's 1 for 2 today. He seems to like slowly, and I mean slowly, be getting more comfortable behind the arc. So hopefully he continues to grow there.
Yeah, absolutely. So would you want to give him a chance at the starting 4 like the rest of the season? Let's just say, I know we're not going to, but let's just say we traded Grant, or would you be hoping in that trade we'd be bringing back our forward of the future?
I mean, if we can bring back our forward of the future, sure, but I have no idea what the future 4 spot looks like. It could be a player that's going to be drafted over the next couple years. I don't know. I don't think Jabari is necessarily the starting power forward for the future. I think realistically, if I'm being optimistic but realistic, he's that energy hustle guy off the bench.
Yeah, except the race guy.
Yeah, like after a game like this, it's easy to be like, maybe he could be the power for the future, you know? He was 6 for 8 against the Kings, 17 points, right? But that's a team that's a little bit undersized as well, right? But then against San Antonio, 30 minutes, only 6 points, 2 for 4, like 4 fouls. Last night against San Antonio in their length wasn't super impactful, but they don't have Wemby tonight, and look at him tonight, 25 points, 7 for 11. You look at the game we lost at home to Utah, he had 13 points in. They were missing a bunch of front court players. Had a 12-point game against Golden State. They're a little bit more of a small ball team. Like, you look at some of his best offensive games against Utah on November 22nd. He had 19 points, 10 boards, 8 for 15. I also believe they were maybe missing some front court guys there because I feel like they've been missing multiple guys every game. So I think you kind of see a pattern where he does play better against small ball lineups because at the 5, like, he's quick. He's quicker to a lot of rebounds than centers are. At least some of the slower centers in the league. So despite giving up that height difference, he can out-pursue the ball. And his energy is hard to match up with for some centers. So I think his best role might be as a small ball center, but that can only happen against certain lineups. So he's an interesting, like, tweener, because that's what he is. He's a tweener between the 4 and the 5 spots. But he can play because he hustles, plays his ass off, can rebound. Defense, I think, has been solid this year. And then he's learned how to finish on the interior, which if you're playing small ball 5, if you're playing in the front court like that, and you're not hitting a bunch of threes like a Duop Reith does, you got to be able to finish. So that's the part that's allowed him to play that role.
What's weird is, and I think this is the reason why he dropped in the draft, I thought he was a tweener, but I thought it was a 3-4 tweener, not a 4-5 tweener. It's kind of weird that he's changed his game to be kind of a big man instead of a wing, because I thought he potentially could be like our 3-and-D small forward of the future, and now we're talking about him as hopefully he could play power forward, but he's better suited as a center, which I agree with. It's just like a weird conversation that he has transformed his game like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But he's grown some chemistry with Scoot too. I think part of it with Scoot was like he needed to get comfortable to who he's throwing the ball to. Because it seemed like he and Jabari had a really good connection tonight. They connected on a lot of plays, and Jabari gets to the free throw line 13 times. Some of those were off of scoop passes some of those were off of scoop passes where if Jabari doesn't get fouled, he's probably finishing, and that's another assist for Scoot. So, Scoot finishes with 11 assists. I don't even know if that does him justice because he had a number of really good passes today that resulted in fouls.
Yep. And he got he was joking around with was that Kamara that missed a shot or something. Yeah. That would have given him another assist. Yeah. Nice to see Scoot setting up his teammates. I was very pleased with that. And
that little slow down I don't even know if it was a Euro step, but that finish he had where he slowed down his footwork and let his defender go by him. Mm-hmm. I love that. He tried that last game, and Wemby just took it from 11 feet high and took it out of the sky. And it's see that play, it results as a miss, right? It's another block for Wemby, and it's why are you trying him? But at the same time, that move, I like that move. I've talked about him needing to change pace, slow down, and you look at the way Luka will slow down and finish. It's easier because he's 6'7", not 6'3", like Scoot, but those types of finishes, I think, will be Scoot's bread and butter one day, where he can just slow down, use his body, change his pace, and and finished like that, because you look at like the way Malcolm Brogdon finishes, you look at some of the better guards in the league, that's what they do. So that play last game, even though Wemby blocked it, it was like, I like that move, and then he pulls it off this game, actually finishes off of it. I continue to like the pace he's playing with.
Yeah. And I do want to mention something about Scoot. So I was pretty hard on him for his turnovers yesterday. So he started off, first play of the game, he gets a turnover. But I said this last night. I don't mind the turnovers if he's throwing a lob pass and it just doesn't work out. He didn't see the backside help on that one. But it's like, okay, well, next time learn from that. And a couple plays later, he did throw another lob, which for some reason he got credited for the turnover, or discredited, or however you want to say it. But I felt like he put it right on the money to Moses, and Moses, for some reason, came down with it and lost it. So I thought that should have gone to Moses. And then one of his other turnovers was he makes a hustle diving play, gets the ball, and just can't pass it to a teammate. It gets stolen. But, I mean, I'm not going to get mad at him for that. I'm trying to remember what his fourth turnover was. Did he have an offensive foul in this game?
Yeah, he did have a charge, which was like a bang-bang call that I think could have went either way.
Yeah. So, yeah, he got out, was trying to push it on a fast break, right? And was it Sohan that took the charge? But, yeah, so, I mean, I would like him to not get those type of fouls, but I'm not going to get mad at him for pushing the tempo too. So today, unlike last night, I feel like all of his turnovers were like just part of the offense. I don't think they were necessarily bad turnovers. Whereas yesterday, I felt like he threw some inexplicable passes and did some things that I was like, dude, come on. You're better than this. And so I was much happier with the way he took care of the ball. And that's why I was so frustrated in the second half of this game when we started just standing there watching frickin' Jeremy Grant dribble the ball like 20 times and shoot a turnaround jumper or take it into like three guys. Because the offense was working with Scoot running it. And there's been lots of times this year where I know you think that we should play Scoot off ball some so he learns, which I do agree he needs to learn to play off ball. But when he's being a maestro out there getting assists and throwing these dimes, you want the ball in his hands. You don't want him to give the ball to Jeremy and go stand at the three-point line and not move while all the other three guys just stand around the three-point line as well. Like I didn't understand why we resorted to that in the second half when the Spurs started cutting into the lead.
At least mix it up. You know, right. Like, because that's the thing. Scoot Henderson, the best version of him, he's going to be able to, like, run the offense like that, but then he's going to be an absolute menace as maybe, like, you can set a back screen for him and he'll go catch a lob, finish a lob, right? Or, like, run him off a curl, and you look at the way he's sharp, has at times eaten off curl screens. I think Scoot will become a guy, ultimately, that will be really good coming off curls, attacking the paint downhill, like catching a pass like that. So, like, some of the off-ball stuff can be stuff that's like set up for him to attack, right? But just not like him dribbling the ball a bunch and then like using a screen. Oh, the screen isn't there. I'm going to back it out. Then uses the screen again. Oh, the screen isn't there. I'm going to back it out. Then use the screen again. Then I'm going to dribble. Then somebody's going to cut and I'm going to find him, right? Because I felt like there's a couple of plays where it was like a really good pass, really good read from him, but the rest of the offense wasn't doing anything. And I think that just shows like that's a perfect example of how Scoot made plays. Jabari, I thought, cut great in this game. Like, players made plays in this game, but it wasn't due to anything Chauncey did. It wasn't due to anything regarding the structure of the offense. Like, it was, for the most part, just kind of looked like rat ball, but guys made shots and guys made plays. So it always looks pretty, even if it's a rat ball, when that happens. But in the second half, it's like, I understand you got Jeremy. He's talented. Right, and at the end of the day, he's 9 for 17, but he's 4 for 5 from 3, and those 4 threes just came off swing passes.
Yeah.
Like, it came off some ball movement, right? So you start ISOing him, he starts struggling. Like, don't just spam it, because they spammed it. There was like 4 possessions in a row.
I know,
It made no sense. And it's just like, yeah, Scoot's on the court, and he had a really good rhythm in the first half. There's no way he has a rhythm now. And it was like, it got to the point where like, man, if they post up Jeremy one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. And, luckily they didn't. I didn't lose my mind. But it was just like, I understand feeding Jeremy in spots, but when everybody's shooting the ball pretty well, people are like cutting, Scoot's making plays, Brogdon's making shots, making plays. Skylar Mays got going there after struggling to start the game. Like, you got some dudes on the court that can make things happen. Don't just spam one player that the shot's going up. There was like 5 or 6 times in this game where Grant had the ball in his hands, and I knew like 3 seconds before he shot it that he was 100% going to shoot.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why Taylor Packer says, notice the defense was collapsing on him heavy when he posts up. I wonder if the plan was for him to be a playmaking come out of that. No chance. One, because we know Jeremy's not like that. I know he had that game recently where he had like 6 assists or whatever, but normally he's not someone you throw it into the post and he creates an inside-out type game from. So I don't think that's the case. And how I know that was not the case is when you watch the other 4 players, when Jeremy gets the ball, just stand there and watch him. That shows to me that the play is to ISO Jeremy to score, not to run some sort of complicated offense where he's setting up a teammate for that, because the other players would be moving or cutting or setting a back screen for someone, because the paint was open when the defense collapsed on that. So I don't think the plan was at all for him to be a playmaker out of that. I think it was just for him to get a bucket. And I don't get that approach when Jeremy's shot the ball extremely well off the catch and shoot, off kickouts this year, like you mentioned, or swing passes. And Scoot's doing a really good job of getting into the paint and passing the ball. Like, why not have him, like, if you want to have him shoot the ball, have Scoot drive right at his guy and draw him in, and then kick him out to him for an easier shot off the catch. You can do his little no dip 3. I don't get it, man. Or like, how can we never do like a pick and pop with Jeremy? Like I don't ever remember him being like the screener. Is he just incapable of setting a screen or something? But
I don't think they have a single set that involves him setting a ball screen, and then he doesn't do it out of freelance.
Yeah,
he doesn't make an effort to.
So why not, like, especially if you have Scoot like playing like he did tonight, if you want to get Jeremy involved, why don't you have him roll along with Scoot and get it to him on the run where he's not just standing there already with a defender on him and having the help coming before he even takes a dribble. Why not get it to him on the move or pick and popping for an easier mid-range shot or three-point shot, aka like LaMarcus used to do. Not understand why we don't ever try that out.
Yeah, no, 100%. If we shoot 10 for 27 from 3, that's still a good 3-point shooting game, but we lose, that's what, 18 less points, right? Like, we score 134, so people just see that number and be like, yeah, the offense was great tonight. The offense was great because of the players. The offense wasn't great because of the system. It was weird watching it, man. Like, second half, there was multiple times where it seemed like guys were like putting their hands up, like they didn't know exactly what to do. There was 2 possessions in the fourth quarter where you can say, oh, they had a lead, they were trying to drain the clock, but there was 2 possessions where I thought, in particular, they were playing not to lose, where they set those 2 screens on either side of the on-ball defender, right? Like, they literally, that's the start of their offense, but they started it with 8 seconds on the shot clock, meaning they took 16 seconds to set up 2 guys screening on either side of the on-ball defender. It does not take 16 seconds to set that up. You know what I mean? That's just literally draining the shot clock, and it's like, man, you look at some of the offensive lulls in the fourth quarter, you look at some of the blown leads that the Blazers have had under Chauncey Billups, and it's like, I see those possessions, and it's like, that's why. they play not to lose. And that's a perfect example. Like, you're playing not to lose. 2 more minutes and the San Antonio Spurs probably come back and like force overtime or even win this game. Like,
right.
The Blazers faded strong at the end of this game. And that's after they shot the ball crazy, crazy well. But the thing is, offensively, when you start playing not to lose, it also, I think, kind of seeps into your defense where you're not playing with the same intensity because you're playing from a point of comfort. When you start slowing things down too much offensively, it's basically like, oh, we're comfortable with this lead. We don't have to like run anything. We can kind of just like wait until the clock's down. Then like hopefully somebody can make a play. And it's like you're sending a signal to your team as a coach, in my opinion, that you're comfortable. So I think that's why you've seen them blow some pretty bad leads under Chauncey Billups, where they go on an offensive low, but also the defense starts falling apart because you start sending the signal that we're fine with where we're at. But the thing is, if it's 2 minutes left and you're up 20, fine. You know what I mean? The thing is, they start playing not to lose too early. And I thought there was times in the fourth quarter was like, man, this offense is literally just everybody kind of like standing around playing slow as hell. Like, this is how you let a team like San Antonio back in the game. Because then you start turning over the ball a little bit. Because everything's kind of bogged down and you're playing against the shot clock and like desperately trying to make something happen in the final seconds of the shot clock. So then they get some steals, then they get some runouts, then they get some momentum, then they start hitting shots, they start feeling good about themselves, they start getting some energy. You're basically bleeding the energy out of your team, giving it to the other team at times when you play not to lose on the offensive end. It's just not something. It frustrates me seeing it because we've seen them blow so many leads. They keep the lead today, they win the game, cool, great, happy about that. Happy about the way individual players played. But as far as Chauncey goes, there is nothing positive that I have to say from this game, despite the final score.
Yeah. There was one play, I think there was about 2.5 minutes left, where Scoot got the ball, and it looked like he was about to force a really bad pass into traffic, and he made a really good decision to like slow it up and take some time. I don't think that's like wrong. I don't think that's what you're trying to say. Like, you can't. It is smart to bleed some clock towards the end of the game, but like you said, you should be doing it knowing you're about to run some sort of action to get someone a shot, not just let's just bleed down the shot clock and then hope Jeremy bails us out with a mid-range turnaround jumper at the end of it.
Yeah. So was not happy about that. Was not happy about that at all. I want to see more offensive structure in the long term. I want to see this team stop playing not to lose when they're up, because like Chauncey sits here and says about last game, yeah, we're just not good enough to have first quarters like that where we just start slow. We're not good enough to dig ourselves out of that hole. But if he's up with a 15-point lead, then he almost coaches in a way to produce that type of quarter in the fourth quarter. It's like you're not good enough to play that style of basketball not to lose when you're up like 17 with 8 minutes left. Like, you will ultimately make this a much closer game than it needs to be, and against good teams, maybe even choke the lead. I mean, they choked a 26-point lead earlier this year. They choked a 20-some point lead to the Lakers at home last year. Like, they have blown some monumental leads, and seeing them play the way that produces some of those choke jobs is not exactly fun, but they shot 59% from three, you know? Yeah. It's nice to see young players play well. It's nice to see Brogdon hopefully upping his trade value. And we need him to have as many good games as possible. It's fun watching Ibu Baji play. In terms of the guys on the court tonight, lots of fun, lots of positives to talk about. Otherwise, yeah, there were some problems coaching.
Yeah, one other thing I want to see from Scoot moving forward is there's been times where, mostly when games were healthier, like he's off ball and he just like he's no part of the offense. He's not doing anything, and so I think games like this show that even when we have our full lineup, I mean, imagine him passing to like Sharp and Anthony and Jeremy and whoever the center is, whether that's Jabari or Ayton or whoever. Like, there's so many things like you get excited because you think that should create some sort of unstoppable offense, because you got shooters, you got cutters, you got like throw Tamani in there too. Like Tamani's Lamar's been pointing this out, and I'm happy for that. But Tamani's like the only guy who cuts consistently, and
Jabari too.
Yeah, I mean Jabari cuts, but he's like around the basket a lot more. So like he's not coming from the perimeter down the middle like Tamani does a lot.
Yeah, I mean he had one last game where Scoot found him on a cut from the perimeter. Like I think Jabari, when he ends up on the perimeter, does a good job of knowing when to cut from the perimeter. But yeah, you're right. He doesn't play out there as much.
Yeah. But yeah, Tamani has just because, I mean, you have to send a guy with him because, like, that one where he was open and Scoot threw the laser to him for a lay-in. That's awesome if we can get some cheap baskets like that. But you can see it, and Lamar's pointed this out, how he just gets the eyes of a defender or sucks someone in, and that allows someone to get an open shot just from an action as simple as cutting right down the middle. And so I want to see more of that. But I want to see more of Scoot not just being a guy out there running around when we have Anthony and Shaden and those guys. I want to see them run some creative sets to get Scoot passing to those guys to get easy shots. And that's where I want to see the development from Chauncey as a coach, is making that happen. Because I feel like he's getting a bit of a pass with this young team or whatever, but I feel like he has the personnel to run a really creative and fun offense, and I don't feel like he's been creative enough with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Chauncey's improvement is as vital as maybe some of the improvement of some of the young guys. I mean, not as much as Scoot, I guess. Maybe not as vital, but it's important. If we're going to keep him long term,
if he's here. Yeah.
If we're not going to keep him, then whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're going to keep him, he has to get better at some of these things, which is why even in a win like this, where we haven't had many this year, and we could just sit up here just soaking in the enjoyment of how everybody went off from three, it's still important to talk about Chauncey. It's still important to hold him accountable for doing some things better. And even in a win, it's I criticize coaching based on the process, not the result, because the process in the end will affect the result. So even in a game like this where they make a bunch of threes, like in a game where they're not, in a game against a better team, the offense is really going to struggle because you completely stagnate in the second half and you start spamming Jeremy Grant ISOs, even though that's not working, and you kind of go away from what was working, which was Scoot Henderson running things, and you don't have enough structure. There's just simply not enough structure. And if I watched this game on TV, I probably wouldn't be commenting on this as much. It was just a little bit easier to see in person. It was a little bit easier to notice watching in person. And it was funny because I was basically at half court on the same side as the camera. So I got like the same view I would have had on TV, but just a little different, a little bit easier to like notice some things. And that's just something I noticed tonight. And that's something to continue to monitor. It's just funny because like the offense is so complex, and I mean, I just don't understand. Like, the only thing I can guess, if that's true, it's because he has like a bunch of freelance like options and rules that players have to learn how to make reads on, and they just like can't do it. And that's why they are not running anything and they're standing around and they just can't figure it out. But it's like, that's another team, another year. I know they're younger, but even veterans the previous couple of years couldn't really figure out how to freelance productively, properly, when not in a set. So, if anything, when you go to a younger team, it's going to get even worse. If anything, this team needs more structure. So, don't really know where this offense is headed. It's nice to see guys hit shots, especially after the rough year, but would like to see more structure.
Yeah.
Shout out to Michelle Wadler, $5 donation. Thank you, Michelle. It's a high five emoji. Appreciate it. Thank you for the donation. High five back to you. And appreciate it. Yeah. So, oh God, we ain't doing this. We ain't doing the trade Ant crap. This is why we need to trade Ant for some defense. Why? Because we shot 59% from three. Hey, if trading Ant guaranteed that we'd shoot 59% from three every game, I would trade Ant for nothing. Okay. But yeah, no. Any other players you want to specifically talk about from this game, Eric?
Well, I do want to say, I mean, Grant had a pretty good game, at least offensively.
I mean, he made threes. He was 5 for 12 inside the arc, which I guess is fine when you get to the line 6 times.
Yeah.
But he's best when he's hitting threes as a spot-up shooter.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I thought Brogdon played well as well. Also, RWNW3 earlier said that Malcolm Brogdon's become so underrated by this fan base. Like, okay, like I think some people take needing to trade someone and us not thinking Brogdon is a good player. Both of us have really liked Malcolm Brogdon in the past. He's a guy that would have been a great third guard to have many of the years with Dame.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that we need him as a fourth guard right now if we're healthy. And it's fine right now because so far this year, there's been very few games where all 4 of our guards have been healthy. But if they're all healthy, we do not want Malcolm Brogdon playing 20 to 30 minutes on this team, taking time away from Sharp, Anthony, or Scoot. We need those 3 guys to develop and get as many reps as possible, both together and learning how to play, 2 of them at a time with one another and seeing which combinations are best. If they can figure out to make it work with all 3 of them, great. If not, we need to figure out which 2 play the best together so we can move on from one of them eventually. So this has nothing to do with Brogdon or anything. It's just we need that eventually to... I don't think you can do it with 4 guards. At least not 4 that are as good as those 4.
Yeah, you got 4 good guards and 3 of them are young and 3 of them are your future.
Mm-hmm.
Like, got to think about what's being said. You got to think about the context behind needing to trade certain players. You don't only just trade players because you think they suck and that's it. That's super simplistic. But some people legitimately, like, if we talk about trading Grant, it's like, why would you want to trade Grant? He's a good player. Like, we get that all the time. It's like, it's not about whether or not he's a good player. Yeah, like, there's a lot of context, there's a lot of nuance that goes into team building in a rebuild. I don't think anybody's taking Brogdon for granted. I mean, here's the thing. A lot of people actually, I think, maybe have overrated how good Brogdon's been for us, if I'm being honest. But, like, this is something I don't really bring up. But, like, he hasn't been particularly efficient. True shooting percentage going into this game, 55%. That's below average. That's a tick below average.
I mean, it's been fine. Yeah, not
great.
It's
it's not like so low that it's bad. But it's not like if he ends up playing for a better team, he's more efficient. You know what I mean? But it's not like he's out here like shooting the ball great. He's shooting 46% from 2, which would be a career low. And he's shooting 10 2-point shots a game. Like, when he shoots inside the arc, it's inefficient. When he shoots from 3, it's efficient. He's shooting 40% from 3. And tonight, 5 for 7. Like, he and Jeremy, in a way, are propped up because of their 3-point shooting. Like, Jeremy inside the arc shoots 48%. Now, he gets to the line 6 times a game. So when you shoot 48% from 2, but a lot of times when you're attacking and trying to score from 2, you're getting to the free throw line, it balances out, right? Mm-hmm. But, like, both those guys shooting 40% from 3, that's their most efficient shot, other than getting to the free throw line. The problem is Brogdon doesn't get to the free throw line as much as Grant. But that's why you look at true shooting percentage, because it takes into account free throw attempts, trips to the free throw line. Grant's 58%. If you're average efficiency or better, then volume becomes good, right? But if you're below average, volume isn't as good, is how I look at efficiency and shot volume combined.
Mm-hmm.
Brogdon has good games. Brogdon has bad games. Tonight, he had a good game. He's had some good games, some really good games. He's had 2 of his best games recently for the Blazers. You love to see it. You hope that he continues it with more consistency. But even in a game like this, what do you shoot from 2, Eric? 4 for 11?
Something like that,
yeah. Yeah, he's 4 for 11 from 2. That's under 40%. You know, he had a good game because he made threes. A lot of times when Malcolm Brogdon has a good game, it's because he made threes. So.
Yeah. I think the leadership thing is so overblown. Like, you have Chauncey, you have, I mean, Anthony's, he doesn't need a babysitter anymore. Like, I don't know. Get a vet point guard for the end of the bench. That's fine. In the Skylar Mays role, where you play only if you're needed. So I don't understand why we have to have someone that's like 6th man of the year last year and a high quality starter in this league. I don't understand why we have to have that as our leader. Like, why can't it be someone who doesn't need to play, or like an into the bench guard, or not even a guard? Like, why does it have to be a guard that's our leader?
Also, I hate this comment. No offense to the dude who said it, but I hate this comment. If you don't have Jeremy or Brogdon on the team, you're probably fighting the Detroit Pistons for worst losing streak in NBA history. We've won games, if I recall correctly, without both those guys.
Yeah.
Not at the same time, I don't think, but...
We've played the same with a lot of them.
Grant had a concussion. Brogdon missed some time. Like, we would not have lost 28 in a row if we didn't have those guys. Like, that's not true. That's not even something you can really argue, though, because that's kind of just made up. Like, you got some other guy. If we had no other guards than Malcolm Brogdon, okay, maybe. But the whole point is you got Scoot Henderson, you got Shaedon Sharpe, you got Anthony Simons. Like, and what's funny is Malcolm Brogdon go 4 for 11 today. Last night, he also went 4 for 11 from 2. Both nights he's gone 4 for 11 from 2, but last night he was 6 for 8 from 3. Tonight he was 5 for 7 from 3. He has good games when he knocks down threes. When he's not knocking down threes, it's a little bit more rough. Sometimes he's able to attack the rim and finish and, get going inside the arc, but he's not efficient inside the arc. And he doesn't get to the free throw line a ton. He shoots 2.7 free throw attempts a game in 28 minutes. So, he averages almost 6 assists per game. He can play make a little bit. He can shoot threes. That's what Malcolm Brogdon is. That's not some, can't miss player. That's a good player on a good team. He's a really good 6th man. He won 6th man of the year last year for a reason. But he's not some guy that's, irreplaceable, that is untouchable or should be untouchable on a rebuilding team, especially when you got 3 young guards. So the Blazers need to absolutely cash in on his value from a good team that needs a 3rd guard. Or maybe even a good team that needs a starting guard. The thing is, most good teams have 2 starting guards that are his caliber or better. But, or, fit, Quentin Grimes is a really good fit as, a 3-and-D guy there in New York, right? RJ Barrett can slide down, Malcolm Brogdon is probably coming off the bench there if he ended up there. But that's why you got to cash in on this. Yeah, they got multiple guards. So some teams don't even need a Malcolm Brogdon. But all of what I've said is why the Blazers need to trade Malcolm Brogdon. And it's because you can get some value back because he is a good player. Mm-hmm. He's I
same reason we had to trade Drew when we got him.
Exactly. I just feel like some people are starting to overblow his production a little bit. When they start talking about, he's taken so much for granted, he's so great, without him, we'd be rivaling the Detroit Pistons for the worst losing streak in NBA history. It's what are we talking about, man? Going a little overboard. Just a little bit.
Yeah, I mentioned this last stream, but so Eric also was talking about examples, but like Earl Watson is a guy that was on the bench. Ronnie Price was a guy that was on the end of our bench early in Dame's career. And Dame said he learned a ton from those guys. And those guys didn't even play at all, or when they did, they're absolutely atrocious. But like they were good guys to have just constantly. Their whole job was to sit there and talk to Dame about the game and be on the bench and watch Dame and mentor over him. You can find those guys. Like, it doesn't have to be someone who can score 20 points a game in this league.
Yeah, 100%. Go find that veteran elsewhere. Somebody that's worse. Somebody that doesn't really cost much to give up. And get a first-round pick, or if you're lucky, 2 first-round picks for Malcolm Brogdon. That way you can have 2 first-round picks this year. Here's the thing. If we trade Brogdon for first, I want them to be first in future drafts, not this draft, because we already have 4 picks in this draft. I already have 2 lottery picks, and I'm not high on this draft.
Agreed.
So I would want future picks. You trade them for, if you're lucky, 2 future first-round picks. You got those 2
picks. Or like one really good one.
Yeah, but like let's just say we get lucky, we get like 2 solid first-round picks from Malcolm Brogdon, right? That has some protections on it. You're not going to get an unprotected pick from him. But you get 2 protected picks that aren't like crazy protections. Mm-hmm. You got those 2 future first-round picks. You got the future Milwaukee 2029 unprotected first-round pick. You got potential pick swaps with Milwaukee in 2028 and 2030, which could be good if the Blazers are good and Milwaukee is bad. And you also got the 2029 unprotected Boston first. All of a sudden, you got some assets, and that's not counting a potential Jeremy Grant trade. That's not counting a potential Matisse Thybulle trade. Maybe the Blazers can get a little bit more back from him than they gave up to get him because he's shooting the 3-ball well this year and still has that good defensive reputation. You stock up on assets for a window where hopefully the Blazers are a good playoff team without having to use any of those assets by the time those assets come into play. Because I would love for the Blazers to be sitting here as like in 2026, right, as a playoff team that like maybe is a dark horse contender. But then you have all your own picks. You have like 5 other first-round picks, a couple unprotected, a couple swaps as Milwaukee is on the downswing. All of a sudden, you are literally in play for any star that becomes available. Anybody that becomes available, you have enough draft pick capital to be able to make that splash. So if Scoot, Sharp, Ant all develop, maybe you could even keep Grant in that equation. I don't know, but you draft guys the next couple of years that end up panning out. And you have a really, really good core that's young, and then you have all those assets. That is the recipe for this team to win a championship one day. Not, oh, well, we would be worse this year despite us being 9-22, so we got to keep all our vets.
Or it's like, let's just say one of those 2029 picks, like, hits in the lottery or something because it's unprotected, and we get like a top 5 pick or something out of it. Mm-hmm. Then all of a sudden it's like you're the Celtics, like who just kept adding like high picks to their already decent roster. Or like the ultimate example is, you have a really good team like the San Antonio Spurs, and you just all of a sudden one year have a top pick and you add a Tim Duncan to your already amazing core, and it leads you to 5 championships. Mm-hmm. Like that. There's so many things you can do with future picks. So I completely agree. Like, load up on those.
Yeah, like you don't just go and trade Brogdon for 1 second, right? Like you got to get enough value out of any veteran trade you make. Brogdon's the most justifiable.
Unless there's like
a
good young player that you're getting back.
Yeah, but I just mean in terms of like pure value, right? Like say you're only getting back the Norman Powell package. Like that's not enough for Malcolm Brogdon. Like then Joe Cronin would be criticized, right? Yeah. And the narrative would be, we had to clear way for our guards. Like, okay, like I understand that, but you got to make sure to maximize his value. Like there's certain a benchmark that needs to be met to trade veterans. And I think the benchmark for Jeremy Grant is a little bit higher with this organization because they don't need to move off him as much as they need to move off Brogdon because they don't have, 3 core foundational pieces at the forward spots. They're all at the guard spots. So at the end of the day, you're just trying to maximize your chance of a championship. I understand why fans want to keep good players. I get it. But at the end of the day, what's the point if we're not trying to maximize our chance to win a championship in the next 10 years? And our chances to win a championship don't really exist in the next 2 to 3. So it's all about what window of opportunity do we have and how do we maximize that? The window of opportunity starts, if we're really lucky, maybe in 2 years, but like more likely, optimistically, 3. And then lasts for hopefully a decade. I don't know. But you got to maximize that window. You got to stockpile up on assets down the line. You don't want to hang on to a Malcolm Brogdon, have 4 guards, maybe get him in the way of like playing some minutes. But then if Scoot, Ant, and Sharp develop really well, all of a sudden Malcolm Brogdon's not playing as much. All of a sudden he has less value to us. He has less value on the trade market. He's already 31 years of age. So what, in 3 years he's going to be 34? He could be even worse. You know what I mean? He could have almost next to no value when we're ready to win. Might as well turn him into value now that will actually be value when we're ready to win. Mm-hmm. So that's why every good game like this, it's not like, oh yeah, like this is why we got to keep him. It's like, man, hopefully he's playing himself into better trade value. Because at the end of the day, he has to be moved.
Agreed.
Also, we got this dude talking about OKC laid out the blueprint. And then there's a comment from Jonathan Evers that's perfect. He says, OKC did not lay out the blueprint. What they did is not reproducible.
Right.
Like, we got... OKC, their mindset was correct. But what actually happened, they got a bit lucky. Because the Clippers needed to sign Kawhi Leonard... wanted to sign Kawhi Leonard. The only way that was going to happen is if they were able to trade for Paul George. They also magically had SGA while they were desperate to trade for Paul George, and nobody realized how good SGA was going to be, right? He was coming off a good rookie year where he averaged like 10 points per game, but nobody was thinking he was going to be a 30-point per game guy. You know, maybe his biggest fans maybe thought so, but like he's panned out in ways nobody expected. So you have the Clippers. They were so desperate for Paul George. They were basically trading for both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard because they had to trade for Paul George to get Kawhi Leonard. So that trade for Paul George was a return on value for OKC that is impossible to reproduce by trading even Dame. The Blazers didn't get as much back for Dame as OKC did for Paul George. So to sit here and say like, OKC's the blueprint, they're not a realistic blueprint. They're like the dude that rolled up to the casino, put $5 down on a bonus for blackjack, and got paid out $5,000 because they got lucky. Which actually in the past, this is a sad story because in the past I could have won a $5,000 bonus on like a $5 blackjack hand, but I didn't place the bonus bet.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that was like when I was like 18, 19 years old. So, you know, speaking from experience, I didn't take my OKC opportunity. They laid out the blueprint for me to be a little richer when I was like 19. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. But the whole point is that trade is not going to be available for any like star anytime soon.
Well, they traded Westbrook, and it was like they got multiple first-round picks and Chris Paul because people thought Chris Paul was, you know, towards the end of his career and washed. That was several years ago. And so not only did they get 2 firsts for taking Paul, but then they end up trading him for a first and other assets, including Kelly Oubre, who I think they got a first for. So like that, you'd have to get pretty lucky to have that kind of thing happen. But what they could do, so they get a first for taking on Al Horford after he doesn't pan out in Philly when they gave him that big contract. And then they rehab his value a little bit, and then they get another first for trading Horford back to the Celtics and for taking on Kemba Walker's contract. they get a first for taking on Derek Favors at only like 10 million or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the kind of mindset the Blazers need. Asset acquisition at every turn until you have the right pieces. So it's not just you're forever trading a player every time they're good, because right now OKC is not going to trade Jalen Williams. They're not going to trade Chet Holmgren. They're not going to trade SGA. So you have your pieces that once you find those pieces, then you don't then trade those for picks. But everyone else, you just keep flipping until you find the right pieces around those three, or you find those main pieces. And you just keep doing it, and you keep taking chances, and you keep going that route. And like you said, eventually you have the pieces to we talk about this all the time. Anytime a trade's brought up, well, if OKC's in on them, we're done, because they can offer more than anyone else, right?
Yep.
Like, why not? Because that's not going to last forever for OKC, because they're going to have to eventually, maybe even this year for a guy like Lauri Markkanen, they're eventually going to turn some of these assets into a win-now player. And so why not have the Blazers be set up to be that team? Like recently it's been like the Knicks, right? Every time someone's available, the Knicks have like 7 firsts they could trade in the future. Like, why not have us be that team that could be in on any player that becomes available, and then everyone's like, well, if they want a star, they could go get him.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So OKC was the blueprint in terms of what they tried to do, but they were also given a starting point that no other team will be able to come close to, because they legitimately got a future top 10 player in the league and 5 first-round picks for Paul George, who was like a borderline top 10 player.
Wasn't it 7?
It might have been 7. I don't know. There was so many picks. I don't even remember how many picks it was. It was ludicrous. It was ludicrous.
Because they had a bunch of picks, yeah.
Anyway. What are we saying in chat? Brogdon's an easier fit for a franchise than Dame? Brogdon plays defense? His defense is not... I don't think Brogdon's defense is good. It hasn't been good for years. Like, what are we saying? What are we... Stop trolling, chat. You guys are doing a little too much comparing Brogdon to Dame.
Malcolm Brogdon is a miracle.
This dude legitimately
said... What was that thing from?
Yeah, Malcolm Brogdon's done miracles on me. like, Brogdon should almost be as valuable as Dame. Like, if that was the case, we wouldn't have been able to get back those picks, Robert Williams III, and everything else we did in the Dame trade alongside Malcolm Brogdon. Like, if he was almost as valuable as Dame. Just, I don't know what we're saying, man. Like... going off the rails. It's almost midnight, so I understand it, and it's a Friday night, so I understand slightly going off the rails right about now, but yeah, I'm not ready to join you, chat. JP Savvy, 2 Eurodono, says, not Blazer related, how do you save the Hawks? Eric, I don't know if you save the Hawks. I don't know if it's possible to save the Hawks. They've traded their future first for DeJounte Murray to become a team crossing their fingers, hoping they get the 10th seed. They're kind of screwed. They're in a position that I'd much rather be in our position than the Hawks' position right now. They make a fluke Eastern Conference Finals run, and they overreact to it.
Well, they went all in. I guess you can't blame them for that, but...
They went all in on a player that I always have thought is overrated.
Yeah, I thought they should have kept going with the young players, and they get Clint Capella, but they have Okongwu just sitting there. Like, he's been good when he's gotten a chance to play. They drafted AJ Griffin last year. It's gotten like no opportunity with their roster. I would.
You know what the beautiful thing is? Portland has their 2nd round pick.
Yeah.
As Jonathan Evers says in chat. Jonathan Evers been on one today, man. MVP of chat today.
When he's here, he always is.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, I want to give him a little shout out, a little love. Yeah, because that second round pick could be very early second if they continue to struggle. But I would probably blow it up. I just don't see a path to contention. It's kind of the same problems the Blazers always dealt with. But we always had our future picks, and it was like, please go all in. They went all in. They still suck.
Yeah. Well, they could get saved by someone giving up a lot for DeJounte, I guess. But I keep hearing the Siakam rumors. It's like, why, dude? You're just...
Siakam with DeJounte, like two.
Well, I think DeJounte probably have to go out. Well, maybe not, but they probably need a salary in that one.
Yeah, I don't know. That team's a mess. That team's kind of been a mess since.
Well, Raptors are messed.
We're experiencing the next wave of teams that are a mess. You know what I mean? Like, teams are a mess, and then they finally elect to rebuild, and then they're no longer a mess, because, like, well, at least they're finally doing what they need to do in rebuilding, right? Like, Washington, yes, they completely suck, but at least they're rebuilding, right? Like, they traded Bradley Beal. This no trade clause made that tricky. They finally washed their hands of that. They are starting a rebuild. That's going to take multiple years, but at least they're starting a rebuild, right? Detroit, yes, they've lost 28 in a row, but they got young talent and they're in a rebuild. Portland, San Antonio, same thing. Like, they have a direction.
Detroit got really unlucky last year too, going from first to fifth in the odds or in the lottery.
You know what's funny is it feels like the three biggest teams, maybe the four biggest teams that don't have any direction right now are all in the East. And that is Toronto, Atlanta, Chicago, and I don't know. I kind of want to throw Brooklyn in there, but I feel like that's being a little too harsh on them. They are not in the same tier as those other teams. But you look at all the teams in the West, it's like, what's the most directionless team in the West right now?
Well, I would say this is kind of funny, but maybe Utah. Like, not because they're directionless, but because they keep playing okay, and not.
Yeah, but that's
really
not like an incompetency thing. Like with Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago, it's all like a incompetency thing with their front office.
JP's just Golden State. That's kind of funny.
Well, that's the thing is I was looking like maybe it is Golden State, but they've won so many championships. You give them a pass. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And you never rule them being able to figure it out. Like, they almost made the Western Conference Finals last year, Like, they lost in the second round. So, when was the last time Toronto, Chicago, Atlanta did anything? Especially Chicago. Chicago's the most directionless franchise. They're a mess. But yeah, like, every franchise in the West, in one way or another, is kind of getting their stuff together. Like, Houston was in the middle of the rebuild, but they're 15-15. People were thinking they might go 15-67. So they're a little better. But they still got a young core. They're still building up to being a, hopefully for their case, right? I don't root for them, but for their sake, hopefully they're a contender, right? Hopefully this rebuild doesn't stop short because they shortchanged it and brought in veterans and no longer have top picks because of it. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how it's in the East, like, is where you got Chicago, Atlanta, Toronto, even Brooklyn. Cleveland, I feel like, might end up being the next team that's a little directionless. They got young players, but if Donovan Mitchell potentially leaves, I could see them being the next Atlanta. So the East is super interesting for that reason.
Yeah.
Utah needs a star. They got a bunch of future firsts and... Yeah. No, you can't post the post game. Do not advertise for us on Reddit, please. Please do not advertise for us on Reddit. Okay? Reddit, for the most part, there's a lot of people there that don't like us. I don't want to bother them. They can feel free to dislike us, but... Yeah, I don't go and like spam our post-game show in places where it's like not welcome. You know what I mean? So no, do not go post game. If it's like in a thread, I guess that's one thing. Don't make a thread. Don't make a thread. We need to become cool with like a Rip City Reddit mod so that they can help us. I don't go to Rip City Reddit for a reason. Cleveland is better without Dawn. I don't buy that. Anyway. Anything else from this game? I think we've done a pretty good job of covering this one.
What'd you think of Skylar Mays tonight?
That dunk was... Dude, like, watching it live, I couldn't tell. Like, I could tell based off the reactions, but watching it live, it was hard to tell that the ball went in on that dunk he had.
Yeah.
But he has, like, sneaky ups.
Yeah, well, it's weird because he is... Like, obviously, he has played well in the past, but he lost his mojo, man. And then
he had a great move on that like Euro step and then smoked the layup so bad.
And then he had that dunk. He had that steal and then he like slowed it up and tried to hold the guy off and then missed the dunk.
Dude, the crowd got so hyped for that play and then he missed the dunk.
I was like, oh man, he's not like I thought he was like a competent NBA player, but lately he's looked like he isn't. And then he started hitting some shots, and then I was like, okay, he's getting his aura back, and so hopefully he did. But
I mean, it's
been a little rough lately.
Yeah. When a guy like that hasn't played an NBA game in like a month after they looked solid, I'm gonna give him some leeway. You know what I mean? Like he was bad yesterday and bad the first half today. Until it's on a larger sample, I will normally just chalk that up to rust.
Right. Normally
chalk that up to like not really having a rhythm. Especially when yesterday he's going up against a 7'4" alien. Like that's gonna be hard for any. He's literally like more than a foot shorter than this dude. So like yesterday, I think it's just that lineup out there is tough for guards in an offense that doesn't move the ball enough.
Yeah.
That doesn't run enough sets. Especially when you don't have Uprise to like bring Wemby away from the rim or bring Zach Collins away from the rim. Was there an update on Zach Collins, by the way?
Just an ankle injury or something.
You saw the play it happened on, right?
Yeah, he walked off on his own power.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was kind of limping. With him foot stuff, can't imagine it's good.
Yeah, I did not like to see that. That play pissed me off because Jeremy had the layup if he just went like to his right hand like normally. And instead, he tries to like clutch, twist, reverse through Zach Collins and just completely smokes it. It's like, why don't you just go up and just dunk the ball normal? Like, he literally had a driving lane to the rim where he could just went up normal and finished. And he tried this acrobatic bullshit. Like, and then he hurts Zach Collins. Because he falls on him. Because he's trying to twist, reverse through him. So he rolls up on him, falls on him, and hurts him.
Mm-hmm.
Disgraceful. Disgraceful. So hopefully Zach's okay, man. Because don't want to see that guy deal with more injuries.
Yeah.
Tori, did you see anyone you knew at the arena? Patrick Morehouse was at the arena. Met him. I was walking out the door, and then I heard behind me, "Wait, Tori?" I was like, I had no idea who it was, but yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I know Smog was there, but I didn't see him.
You guys are the best. I'm drunk.
Thanks. I love drunk compliments. Appreciate it. Congrats on getting drunk. Let's see. Patrick says, what about the layup triple teamed under the basket? I don't know which play he's talking about. Do you?
Are you talking about the one where he like stopped and then turned back around and ended up reverse slaying?
I feel like we shoot a lot of triple teamed under the basket layups. No congrats on getting drunk. Why are you being a buzzkill, Jackson? Literally a buzzkill. Okay, this dude, it's time for him to go.
Yeah, no fake Woj bombs, dude.
Yeah, 12:08. It's 3:08 on the East Coast in the morning. It's a Woj bomb on December 30th. Yeah, this is literally like the worst time you could even try. I'm just going to hide them for the rest of the stream. But if they pull any more stuff, it's permaban. Okay? Anything else that's fishy, it's permaban. After Baji saved the ball from going out of bounds. Oh, the Baji save. I remember the save. I don't really remember the shot, unfortunately. Maybe it's because it was a completely forgettable shot. But, you know what play?
Yeah. So Skylar came out of it with it. He went to go dribble out and then turned back towards the basket on the baseline and ended up being open underneath.
Oh, that was his first bucket, huh?
Reverse lay-in.
Yeah. That was
after his horrible layup.
See, like, we've seen multiple plays where, like, our guards have, like, stopped and used their pivot to get shots off on the inside, which is nice. Got to be able to use that pivot, man. And seeing Scoot do it last game against Wemby is nice. Shout out to Energy Warning, a.k.a. Carson with the... Or no, that's Parker.
Parker. Yeah.
Energy Warning. They got, like, the same looking logo. Parker, the Energy Warning. $2 donation. What's up, Parker? Says, 'tis the season. Appreciate you guys. Happy New Year. Thank you, man. Appreciate your donation. Hopefully you have a good weekend. Looking
Happy
forward
New Year,
to
everyone. We won't see anyone
2024.
until Monday, the 1st.
Yep.
So we'll see everyone then.
And hopefully I'm in a good mood on that move. I can't even talk. Hopefully I'm in a good mood on that postgame show. Because we'll see. Because the Huskies play at the same time as the Blazers do. So Gabe's trying to get me to do a watch party while watching the Huskies game because the Blazers play the Suns. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to deal with me praying desperately to finally have one of his teams win a championship. Jackson says, how worried are you that Cronin takes the Norm/Roko package for Brogdon or Grant? Asks Jackson.
Well, right after that, Landon also asked, in y'all's opinion, what are the chances Jeremy is traded at the deadline? I'd say less than 5% for Jeremy.
I'd say 10%.
Brogdon, I think it's like 80%. Yeah, I mean, I'm worried about it, but I think both of those guys are liked enough within the organization that they're not going to take a bad trade just to trade them like they thought they had to with Norm. So I'm not worried about that. I'm more worried that they are going to decide to keep them and not explore trade packages because I think that's a mistake. But I'm not worried about them taking like a horrible deal for them. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really worry about what if he does something awful. I'm more so like, well, let's see what he does, and then if/when he does something awful, then that's when I have a emotion regarding it. I try not to worry about stuff that hasn't happened yet, you know? Like, that's kind of how I've always been. By the way, if you leave a like, it means you'll have a good 2024. So hit that like button. Even if you're watching on a TV, even if you're watching on a tablet, whatever you're watching on, leave a like button and you'll have good luck in 2024. I'm just the messenger, okay? Don't blame me. But that's why you should hit that like button. And we need likes. because we are basic YouTubers. Shout out to Truly Spencer PDX, member for 14 months, says, have to use my milestone or lose it. Love the show. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, this is your last chance to use the member message.
Jackson says, sorry about the Beavs, Eric. Yeah, well, we didn't have... Like, it was kind of unrecognizable, the team today.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, you can, for other sports, you can come hang out with my Gonzaga Bulldogs in the WCC, and Gonzaga sucks this year, so maybe you can beat us, because we suck now.
Yeah.
Mute that bozo says, I am not sold on Flag. I think Sarr is the guy. I am as sold on Flag this far out from a prospect's draft as any prospect other than Wemby. Like, I
Agreed.
I am so sold on Flag. Like, I'm a big movement pattern guy, as I've said before. The way that dude can move with the ball, the way that dude can handle the ball, the way that dude has a feel and a knack for scoring, passing upside, the stuff he can do defensively, could be a guy that could guard 4, maybe even 5 positions if he's going against a small ball center. I mean, he is the total package. He is the real deal. That dude, if we suck next year, it's just going to be like fingers crossed for Cooper Flag. Like, I desperately want him in a Blazer uniform. Also, he has an edge to him that I like.
Yeah.
So he talk about needing a superstar. I have a ton of confidence that he will be a superstar. Hopefully it's for us. At the very least, I think he'll be an all-star, two-way shot creating, shot making forward, which we need. Shout out to Trevin, member for 1 single month. He's been a moderator for like 40 months, but he's a member for 1 month. Says, they gave me 1 off entirely gifted memberships. Yeah, you got a gifted membership. So that's awesome. You love to see it. And I think next month I'll be able to send gifted memberships myself without having to like pay for it. Like I could just gift a membership every stream. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Nice.
Anyway. Once again, this stream is brought to you by BetUS. Use the link in the description box below if you want to get in on any gambling action with the college football playoff coming up on Monday. The Blazers taking on the Suns on Monday. Also, you can bet on college basketball, overseas basketball. If you want to scout any games, that's a fun way to make it interesting. And if you use that link in the description box below, you'll receive a 125% deposit match, which means if you deposit $100, you'll receive $125 free dollars. If it's $1,000, you'll receive $1,250. So it's free money to test your sports knowledge with BetUS. Shout out to them for sponsoring this stream. Using that link also helps the channel, so appreciate all the support that you guys give us. Anything else, Eric? My Del Tacos here.
A couple people asked if I'm still going to the game tomorrow night. Yes, going down to Corvallis to watch the Beavs take on USC and Bronny James, Isaiah Collier. The rest, Tori still hasn't decided yet.
Yeah,
you need to decide.
Yeah,
okay.
I probably will.
Right.
It's rare that I get 2 days off from streaming.
Yeah,
now that I do my Friday show and I do Monday, Thursdays, and yeah, so I don't know. I'll watch the game, but I think I'm chilling. Shout out to Benjamin, member for 26 months, says, thanks for keeping us entertained all year. Appreciate you. Got you. We'll do it next year too. Shout out to G. Willikers, member for 6 months. Manta mask time. Shout out to those of you who bought a Manta mask for Christmas, by the way. Appreciate that. Hopefully you or your loved ones enjoy it. Thank you for your member messages. Now everybody's going to send their member messages because they're like, oh, we're going to lose it. But we appreciate you guys for being members for real.
Yes, thank you. Tyler says in and out on the way there. The line has been super long on weekends, so I'm going to talk to the guys and see if they want to do it on the way home maybe, but not on the way there, I don't think, because we'd have to allow a lot of extra time.
Did you hear they're trying to put an In-N-Out in Ridgefield, Washington?
Are they? Nice.
Do you know where Ridgefield is?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like that's where my mom lives.
Mm-hmm.
She hates it.
Yeah.
She hates it. They need another freeway off-ramp and on-ramp because Ridgefield's grown a lot, but they only have like one freeway off-ramp and on-ramp. It's like if you're going to put an In-N-Out there too, That's just a nightmare.
Yeah. No, there was 2 spots in Beaverton that they applied to get a permit to go in, and both of them would have been horrible.
Yeah.
So I'm actually kind of happy.
Jackson, saying my mom lives in a town with thousands upon thousands of people is not doxing her, man.
Yeah.
And a shout to Javon with a member message for 2 months. Says Arctic Circle greater than In-N-Out. I have no idea what Arctic Circle is.
You're so young. Yeah, there aren't any Arctic circles around here anymore, so that doesn't matter.
When will you guys do some trade
Skipper's
ideas?
greater than In-N-Out too.
I've heard of Skippers. When will you guys do some trade ideas for our vets closer to the deadline? Yeah, coming up soon. Definitely in like the next couple of weeks, and definitely gonna start working on the videos for that. Chats.
There's one in Newport still. Yeah, I guess there is, but
Yeah.
we're not going to Newport anytime soon.
Yeah. Daniel says not his fault. Arctic Circle hasn't been in the area for 20 plus years. Yeah, never heard of it, but anyway, I got Del Taco because we're talking about food. I ate a burger and some waffle fries. It was small at the game, and it was like $20. I kind of regret it, and I hadn't eaten anything all day, so I'm going to enjoy my food, relaxing over the weekend before Monday. Big day, 2 streams for us, and college football playoff. Anything else to wrap up the year of 2023, Eric?
Thank you so much for everyone who supported us this year. Hope everyone has a happy new year. Celebrate responsibly, and we hope to see you on Monday.
Well said. We're out of here. Thank you for a great 2023. Looking forward to seeing what next year brings with the channel. Gonna hit 10K subs next year. Knock on wood so I don't jinx it, because I am pretty good at jinxing things, but we're close. We're almost there. Looking forward to hitting that milestone finally next season, and looking forward to the rest of this year, the rest of the development with our young players, and then another interesting off season coming up without the stress of Damian Lillard and building around him. And we're in rebuild mode right now, and we get the better of the Spurs tonight, 134-128. On fire from 3. The Blazers shoot 16 for 27, 59%. Jabari Walker, big game, 25 points for him. Scoot Henderson looking better. You love to see it. Jeremy Grant, Malcolm Brogdon still doing their thing. This was a fun game tonight, and we'll see what the Blazers can do on Monday against the Phoenix Suns. They start a big road trip in January, so be prepared for a lot of road games. And with that being said, that's a wrap for 2023 and this edition of the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show. Thank you to BetUS for sponsoring this one, and we're out of here. Shout out to Defend the Rose, member for 22 months with the peace sign. And with that being said, as always, peace out.